Now with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means may Allah extol and send blessings of peace upon him. With the Prophet ﷺ, we have every detail of his life. The direction he combed his hair, which shoe he put on first, which shoe he took off first. You know,
every detail.
How he relieved himself, what side he slept on, how he put his hand when he slept. Every detail of his life is there.
Is there anyone that has more details of their life preserved? Bush, Clinton, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, any of their lives detailed like this man?
Nobody in the history of humanity.
That's a miracle itself, isn't it?
Yeah, and no follower of any other prophet could follow them to the smallest degree as we can follow the Prophet ﷺ. So now, with all this information available to us, it would be easy for us to go and look into it and look at his actions, his sayings, his teachings, his demeanor, his behavior, his manners, and see, was this a genuine prophet or was this some guy pretending to be a prophet? Because we have so much information. We can analyze it and come to a clear conclusion, true or false.
True.
Okay, but before we do that, there are a bunch of other things. First of all, let's assume, because there are only two options, all right? So this man, Muhammad ﷺ, 1400 years ago, came in Arabia, and either he was a genuine prophet, given a message by Allah, or he was, God forbid, an imposter, totally made it up. These are the only two options. Even if you say, no, maybe he really cared about people and made it all up for the sake of helping, still means he was not genuinely sent by Allah. He made it up. So, the first thing we need to discuss, what would be the motive of this man? Why would he do that?
Like when the police, they're looking for a motive behind the crime. What's the motive behind him making this crime?
I mean, that's what they look for. They look for the murder weapon, they look for the motive.
You
know, it doesn't work with one of the two.
Yeah.
So, what's the motive? Because we need a motive, and a strong one. Because he knows, he lives in Arabia, he knows these Arabs, they fight over horses, a horse race can start a war that will go on for decades, you know. So he knows that if he's going to attack the most beloved things to them, their idols, they're going to fight against him. So he must have a strong motive to want to face years of battle and warfare and attempted assassinations. So the motives now, and now here, anyone can put any motive they want to imagine, right? So maybe he did, this is now we're talking about the assumption or the accusation of him making it up. Why would he make it up? Maybe he wanted money, so we put that down as a motive. Maybe he wanted women. We put that down as a motive. Maybe he wanted power. Maybe he wanted fame. Maybe he was ill. He heard voices and that prompted him to do all these things. Whatever it is, and whatever, like if you're asking someone what are possible motives, whatever they say, write it down. Whatever they say, write it down. One time someone told me maybe he was from outer space. I wrote it down. And then we're going to come back to it and analyze his life, his teachings, his sayings, his manners, his mannerisms, to see, could it be that he did it for money? Could it be that he was from outer space? Whatever it is. Because we can come to a clear conclusion that he was a genuine prophet by doing this analysis. So I'll give you one example. Okay, so we said maybe he pretended to be a prophet because he wanted money, right? So now we have so much detail about his life. Let's analyze it.
So we go back to that now.
Absolutely.
All that authentic information.
There you go. I mean, it was detailed. It was written in detail. Everything that he did, how he spoke, how he walked, what he looked like physically. Now we can go back and analyze it, right? So if we accuse him of wanting money, he did it all because he wanted money, then we analyze his life. We see first of all what he lived in, and it was basically a room that was only 6 feet by 6 feet, that had walls made of mud and palm stalks, and it had, you know, just a simple ceiling that would sometimes leak, and they had basically no furniture, just a mat and like a pillow stuffed with palm fiber and a clay pot and another broken cup, something like that. So now you don't see any wealth in his life. You see his wife Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to say that sometimes for 2 months there wouldn't be a fire lit in his home. So her cousin asked her, what did you eat? How did you live? She said dates and water. Meaning you just eat dates, which are sweet, and drink water. No meat, no bread, nothing. 2 months.
And this is when he could have had money.
This is when actually money was coming in, but he never came into his house. It was distributed immediately.
Who was it given to?
It was given to the poor, it was given, put in the Muslim treasury, but he never used it. So much so to the point that it almost caused a divorce between him and his wives because they were asking for an increase in his stipend or his salary. And he refused. And it caused a big problem for him. And this is now a prophet who's also human and he has problems like this. But it shows you that he refused to bring any money into his home or even to give his wives. They lived a very difficult life. So no food, no meat cooked in your home for 2 months. You know, living in those small cramped quarters, if you want to call them. So every way you look at it, you don't see wealth in his life. You see his teachings, always telling people to abstain from loving the materialism, to being attached to worldly life. So this is not the teachings of someone who wanted wealth.
Yeah.
At the same time, you also see things like that he would get a lot of wealth. He would get 10,000 camels or goats or sheep or gold coins, and he would give it all away and come back home.
All to the poor.
All to the poor, and come home empty-handed.
Yeah.
Who does that? Someone whose motive is money, that's not what they do. And interestingly, when he first started his message, and I think you remember this very well, when he started his message, they came to him and they said, leave this. If it's money you want, we'll give you money. If it's women you want, we'll give you women. So leave it. So if his motive was money, he would have accepted the offer.
Kind of like when you come to some of the corrupt people who are in office, the politicians, and they make the side deal with the big corporation. We'll give you this, just vote this way, do this. And that's when they crack and crumble.
So if they came to him and said, look, if he wanted money and they came and said, look, we'll give you money, he would accept this deal. But something else is very interesting, Eddie, is that he was actually very rich before becoming a prophet and became poor after becoming a prophet. So that goes against the plan. If he's going to pretend to be a prophet to make money, he should make money, not lose his money. So every way you analyze his life, you see that there was nothing about wealth or love of money.
So we got that one.
So you can X that off the list.
X that out.
So the next one, women. So you might argue, or someone might argue, well, he wanted women, he pretended to be a prophet because of women, and there you go. But every way you analyze it, you don't see the mark of a womanizer. Because first of all, when he first got married, he was 25 years old. But he married a woman who was 40 years old. She's 15 years older.
She proposed to him, right?
And she proposed to him, excellent. Now, a womanizer doesn't go for older women. They go for younger women. But he married a woman that was 15 years older than him. He stayed married to her for a long period of time, for 15 years, and never married any other wife. So a womanizer, again, if he is making up his own religion, he'll say that I can marry 50 or 100 or no limit. But why did he remain with one woman for 15 years who was older than him? That's not the mark of a womanizer. His second marriage was to Sauda bint Zam'a. Narrations go about her age anywhere from the age 55 as high as 65 years of age. Maybe it's inaccurate, but that's how high the narrations go. So the second wife was about 50 to 50-some years old. Again, that's not how a womanizer behaves. You go younger. You don't go older.
And this is his wife, not mistress.
Exactly.
Girlfriend.
This is his wife.
This is his wife.
Yes. And so every time you start to look at one of the marriages of the Prophet ﷺ, you'll find that some of them had a political, not motive, but like goal or like wisdom behind them. Some of them had social wisdoms behind them. Some of them have religious rulings that were revealed because of these marriages. Some of them were humane, like when he took Sauda radiallahu anha, who was an old woman. She had nowhere else to stay, and he obviously can't just bring her into his home. So he married her. So some of them had humane reasons behind them. So there was always a reason, and it wasn't just that when you look at it, it's not the behavior of someone who's a womanizer.
Can it also be, is it a wisdom here because we see that we have so much information on him, now the people behind the scenes are the wives. So they're narrating his life. Is this also a way now that to get more information? Because
definitely.
And that's the intimate things, the details of all his life that the man can't give his buddies, his companions. Only the women can.
Of course, and they lived with him and they saw him do everything, and so they were able to relate to us the finest details of his life. And by the way, I mean, no matter who you look at and you analyze their life, when you look at it in detail, you start to find flaws. But we have so much detail on the intimate life of the Prophet ﷺ, so if there was a flaw, we'd be able to see it very clearly. You know. And an impostor, certain things would not work out. Like the impostor would not practice what he would preach, right? And we can expound on that a bit more if you'd like.
Let's take a break. They're signaling, and we'll be back on. And we're talking about the proofs and evidences, the arguments someone can have, and we listed a few of those: money, women, power, and we knocked out the power. You were talking about the woman. Please continue on.
Yes, so we're saying that when you look at the marriages of the Prophet ﷺ, they don't fit the pattern of someone who's a womanizer. not from age, not from duration. Because his first marriage, and the correction is that he was married to his first wife for 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah, and the womanizer basically doesn't need to stay with one woman for a long time, you know. And I think in our day and age, most people are familiar with how the womanizers operate.
Okay.
So they don't stay with one for a long time.
Yeah. So you can expound on all of these. It can be a lecture on its own.
Absolutely.
Because we're almost out of time, tell us, because we have a few more that we have to knock out.
Yes.
So this is, and I'm sure anyone who's sincere, who has an open mind, humble heart, he can be like, you know what, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So if you want to go ahead and wrap up on this one, and then we have a few more to cover.
Okay, suppose he wanted power,
Yeah.
right? If he wanted power, he'd be demanding power constantly, right?
Yeah.
And he would be elevating himself in status in this religion and saying, you know, like, I'm flawless, I don't make mistakes, you need to obey everything that I say. But when you look at the message of the Quran, it actually puts him in a very human depiction, you know, that he is human, that he makes mistakes, that he will die just like everyone else dies. The thing about power, suppose he wanted power, it's interesting how one time a Bedouin Arab, so like a nomadic Arab, came and he doesn't know what the Prophet looks like, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He hasn't seen photographs, there's no internet, magazines. So he comes into the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he has to ask this question. He has to say, which of you is Muhammad? Which is amazing. That means the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions, dressed in a way like all of them were dressed, not dressed better or differently, not sitting on a throne or sitting higher than they are. And it means he was so humble and so simple that he looked just like anyone else. So he had to ask, which of you is the Prophet?
Not like some men, I mean, who are just constantly thriving for attention.
Now, when you go somewhere, just the architecture of the room will tell you who the big shot is, right?
Yes.
You can't ever walk into a king's court and ask the jester, Your Highness, it's clear who the king is. The big chair, the big cloak, the big hat, whatever it is.
Amazing.
So this is proof that he's not someone who wanted power. Even one time someone tells him, whatever Allah wills and you will. And he became angered. He said, have you made me like an equal to Allah? Say whatever Allah wills. Someone who wanted power would say yes, absolutely. You know, interestingly, when the infant son of the Prophet ﷺ passed away, it coincided with an eclipse. And when the eclipse of the sun. So when the sun eclipsed, at the moment the infant of the Prophet ﷺ died, the people started to say, you see, the son is sad at the death of the son of the Prophet ﷺ. That son. So he actually, now an imposter would take advantage of this
opportunity right there.
Absolutely, yes.
That's it.
And you should all be sad and give me some money while you're at
it.
What did he do? He says, no, these are like creations of Allah, the sun and the moon, and they don't, you know, eclipse or anything because of the death or the life of anybody.
So he shied away from it. He set things straight.
So you can see it's not someone who wanted power.
So we're out, no power.
No power. It's not. If he wanted to become famous, then you look at the Quran, because the book, the Quran, would have to be written by him. So if he wanted if there was a motive, it would be reflected in his writing, right? So he would say, you know, he would elevate himself in rank. He would say, bring women to the Prophet, because that's his motive. If he wanted wealth, he would write, bring wealth to the Prophet. God commands you to bring him wealth. If he wanted power, he would say, obey everything that he does blindly, you know, and so on and so forth. If he wanted fame, he would just constantly talk about himself. But interestingly, and we're running out of time, I know, Eddie, but you know, and you know this, that the name of Moses is mentioned far more than the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran. The name of Jesus is mentioned more than the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if he wanted to be famous, why is he writing about other people in his book? It's all about me, the book. So every way you look at his life, it doesn't fit the mold of someone who's an imposter, pretending to be a prophet to get some kind of worldly gain. I would like to urge people to do their own research, because everything about his life is available online, it's available on the internet, in books that you can find, and you look at it carefully. Does this look like the act of an imposter? And you'll come to the clear conclusion that it's not, inshallah.